Kevin, sometimes we hear the workplace jerk, this phrase kind of circulating, and probably you have also experienced it in your career that some people don't really behave that well in the professional setting. And in that case, how would you advise or how did you basically interact with those people with less than ideal behavior? Could be a boss, it could be a coworker, and some of the example of those abusive behavior would be kind of like public shaming, what else? Like personal insult, uh, blackmailing you, threatening your career progression. So those kind of so-called workplace jerk. So any personal experience or advice on that?
Yeah, plenty of personal experience. In fact, one of the company I used to work for, they have a famous no jerk policy, specifically addressing that type of behavior. Now, having worked there before, I'm not sure it is 100% executed perfectly down the line, but it is a good sign that it is coming from the top where it gets, well, it gets the message is being transmitted down to other level about this policy. So at least there is a ideology that is being supported by top management, not wanting jerks, to work in this particular company. But if you think about those behavior that you just talked about, right, is primarily about power or an expression of power, a demonstration of power, right? And some of the intention behind this is wanting to get things done their way. And if you don't cooperate, then they will use any tactics or means, one of them being those kind of things, threats, mock you, ostracize you, threaten you that you won't give you a pay rise or whatever. Now, how much of that can I control that person who actually has the grade and the corporate seniority to make that a reality? Not much. If that person really wanted to execute those things that they said they're going to do, I can't really do much about it. However, I think it would be meaningful and is relevant for you to think about where you are in this company. And if you're dealing with someone like that, a few options would pop into my mind, which is, do you want to continue to work for a place or people like that? Okay. The other question is, how much of that behavior is actually impacting your work experience and your workplace harmony? Because there is an extent and there is, for example, how regularly do you receive this? How closely do you work with this person? Is this person your direct superior, right? Now, if it's a direct boss and you do see this boss every day because it's just sitting right next to you, okay, I think that's going to be a challenge. But in my case, let's say if I had a boss like that, but he actually sits in London, I'm thinking, well, can I work with it? Can I overcome this? I probably can, right? Because I don't need to talk to this guy every day. And as in when I do, I'll just adjust my own behavior not to trigger those type of things from him, right? So that's how I would deal with it. But many things, when you're at the lower level, more junior level, unfortunately, because of the hierarchy of the corporation and how things are done, personally, I just have to put up with it for a period of time, okay? And sometimes that person doesn't last long because everybody knows that it's difficult to work with and he's not well liked. And at some point he's going to be transferred out or, he found something else to do or he's just being fired, right? Otherwise, you might have mobility options within the company. So most of the time, the company has a website. It lists out all of the post they're currently looking for, they prefer to fill it from within, because it's obviously a known person who understands the company already. And those roles are most of the time more middle to senior role, because junior roles, they don't really care whether you're from the company or not. They just hire graduates. So if you want to get ahead, those are good opportunities. And if the workplace jerk is giving you motivation, then maybe it just makes you more motivated to find these opportunities and more actively looking for transfers. So those are two things that I would think about in the event that there is absolutely nothing you can do. Okay, leaving is not an option because you need a job and you don't really find opportunity elsewhere, or you actually like the nature of the job that you have. Then consider this as training. Because don't forget that, I think I told you before, we don't pick our bosses ever. So having the ability to adapt is actually one of the most important skills that you will need for any work that you do. Let's say that person is not a jerk, but it's difficult to work with nevertheless, right? It doesn't make that much difference, between a person that is classified as a jerk versus someone, well, he's not a jerk, but he micromanages me. He says changes his mind all the time. Those people are difficult to work with too, even if they're not a jerk. So there is a lot to be said about your own ability to adapt. Okay. So I say all of this in the context that you're not impacted in a way that is harmful either to yourself physically or mentally. If you feel that the extent to which the harm is coming to you by that behavior that is contributing to notable physical, emotional or, psychological or mental harm, then I think you should think about it a little bit more seriously, maybe talk to HR. But make sure that, the conversation is confidential, make sure there's no retribution coming back to you unnecessarily. And, most companies should have that confidential channel to talk about these kind of things, and just approach those people for a conversation and see, whether they can help you.
So it sounds like there are a few options that someone can do. So the first one is in doing that and a change of mindset, thinking that it's a test. It's a test of character, test of skills, of whether you can adapt, and kind of also it helps you hone your interpersonal relationship, because you get to interact with different types of people, and in that process you gain some experience, because it could be helpful in the future. What if you get promoted, and like you mentioned, right, mobility, you get promoted or you get transferred to another country, another department, and that same boss is similar behavior, then now you get the training, you have the experience handling that. Or what if a client is like that? So that could be the silver lining in that experience, right? And if it really is harmful to a point where you feel kind of depressed or some real mental consequence, then the person should voice and see if there's something that can be done through the company, right? Yeah. So what if it is not a boss? What if it's a coworker, a team member, let's say? So you're working in a project and it's hard to cooperate with the team member. In that case, because as a team, we need to work together to get something done, right? To finish the project. Then in this case, should we approach the coworker because we are kind of the same level, right? And to try to solve it like person to person conversation, or should we resort to the team leader? So any particular experience or past kind of tactics that we can use?
It's quite situational. There isn't a one size fits all kind of answer to that. And my default response to that, if I'm in that situation, would be I need to take some time to observe. Okay. And the thing that I would observe is that person who is exhibiting the jerk-like behaviors, is he like that to everybody? Or is it just to me? Now, if he's like that to everybody, then I think, well, I think we just collectively have to put up with it. If it is just to me, then I think it's worthwhile to think about something a little bit more. And I think you would never really get the truth if you speak to the guy directly. So I would then observe, well, in what situations does that trigger that side of that person to behave like that to me? Okay. Am I doing something in a certain way that triggers triggering him because he's just doing that to me, right? Now, again, if you look at what you do, you observe your own behavior, and your conscience is clean, you're not doing anything to trick anybody, you're just a normal person, you're respectful when you talk to him, you're polite, you're not making life difficult, then it is then down to whether that relationship is going to impact performance. So if he does things to you and the way that those behavior impacts you is it reduces your productivity, like physically, because let's say he's not cooperative. He's meant to give you certain information, he just doesn't give you, or misses your deadline all the time. Then regardless of whether he's a jerk or not, you need to escalate because you need to get that settled. And the way you would escalate is to the project lead and say, look, I have an issue. I'm not sure how you can help me, but I would like to bring it to your attention because it's impacting my deliveries. And here's what happens. Okay. And without telling that person this guy's a jerk, right? Because then it brings in your own personal judgment, right? Just report the facts and tell the person what you've tried and what worked and what didn't work, and ask for some advice. And that person may not do anything for you, but that person will say, well, try this first. If everything failed, then you go back to the person and say, hey, look, I've tried everything you told me, still doesn't work. What should I do next, right? So I would do that. I wouldn't really spend any time confronting directly with that person who is exhibiting a jerk-like behavior, because I would never gain anything from that conversation. Because if he decides he's going to behave like that towards me, specifically towards me, there are certain things I don't understand. And if I were to try to understand it, it's unlikely he's going to give it to me in a friendly attitude, open-mindedness, give me the entire thing. Well, that's why I don't like you. Very unlikely. Okay. So waste time, on doing that. And so this is again, on the basis that you're clean yourself, right? So this is very important. Are you on good behavior? Okay. Because it's only then you should then go back to the project lead and say, hey, can you help me out? Because I'm clean. I'm really nice to everybody. And this person is slightly difficult. Can you help? Yeah.
Yes, and on that, what if I'm a jerk? What if I'm the jerk, get reported, right? Either I'm the boss or I'm the coworker. I just, let's say, overheard someone talking behind my back, or the HR just come to me and say, oh, there's some complaint about your behavior. So in that case, what should I do if I don't realize I'm behaving like a jerk?
Well, if you don't realize that you're behaving like a jerk, then in your mind, you're innocent. So now that you realize, you should change if you didn't realize. So I think that's a relatively easy answer, right? I'm only behaving like this because I didn't realize. Well, now that I realize, oh, sorry, I'll change. Okay. I think the more problematic ones is those who realize already that's who they are. And they kind of say, well, that's just the way I am, right? Those are the more challenging cases. And I think I've seen lots of those. And normally it doesn't end well. That person get either transferred out or, gets told quietly, and I think you should just resign. I don't want to fire you, but I don't think it works out for us based on how people work with you. I've seen so many of them. And they're not like, they don't have to be super nasty to get to that stage where people would complain about them. All they need to be doing is uncooperative, generally, right? Let's say, you get into a front office position and, when it comes to clients, let's say a senior guy and I fights over who is the primary coverage of this client, because then I get, certain recognition for bringing the client on board and things like that. It's almost like in nature, it's the law of the jungle. There's nothing written that says you have to behave in a certain way, but you kind of, in an unspoken way, know that, okay, well, maybe I should retreat here and then maybe not push as hard, but this time maybe he's got more rationale than me. The next time I'm going to push harder, because it kind of works its way out. And if you are both at a similar level of a player, then generally things work out without blood, right? Without someone stabbing someone else. It's only when you're not at the same level of player that you use tactic or an approach that it is inappropriate, in the law of the jungle. Then other people say, hey, this is not how the game is played. You should learn how to do this. And until then, you don't belong to this club. So those jerks who thinks they are someone special, they can rise above and rules apply to other people but not them, generally don't last very long. And despite them being a good producer, maybe they're a really good salesperson, they would only last as long as their performance is outperforming their deficit in being a jerk. The minute the performance does not outperform.
So it sounds like non-conforming is not always good in all circumstances. Yeah. So
non-conforming.
Non-conforming means they play their own rules, right? Play by their own
Right.
rules instead of the common game. Yeah. So
I think it's just about common, like, mutual respect. I think jerk means the primary difference is this person is just not respectful to another person. If I have to sum it up in one word, there are many manifestations of what disrespect look like, but the baseline of the source of all of that behavior is disrespectful.
And on that, is there any points you want to add?
No, I think we talked a lot about it. Yeah. Thanks, Francis.
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah.